Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I say all three because whether you're joining us live or later on demand, we want to welcome you to a 2025 planning session of the Insight webinar series. I'm really excited to bring an all-star team member together with you to talk personally while spotlighting success in trucking powered by ES, their business, and support and services that they'll be bringing to you today and again tomorrow in 2025. My name is Leah Shaver. I'll serve as host and moderator of our conversation. I want to thank you for your part in keeping our country moving. Thank you to those of you who work from sunup to sunset and all the time before, after, and in between, but especially taking the time to join us today. As professional truck drivers continue to deliver necessities across North America, just know that we are always cheering for you. We worry about you. We hope the best for you. And today we are very happy to connect with you. Every day is an extraordinary time to be in the transportation industry, especially as a small business owner. And I am excited for today's discussion about the coming year. Before we get this party started, and as we give you a moment to join us, I'm just going to take a couple of moments to give you notes about today's discussion. We're taking questions, so at any time, if you add them to the chat function here in your Zoom app or on your desktop, you'll see on your device. I'll get them during the webcast or later and reply offline. Second, the 2024 Insight Online Series is being presented by Expediter Services. ES is a leader in capacity solutions and ownership opportunities, and they are pleased to have Stoops Freightliner and Dobbs Peterbilt serve as title sponsors for the Insight 2024 webinar series, which is only one part of the Insight. We also produce an Insight 2024 podcast series. Through the podcast, we offer listeners an in-depth look at key issues and opportunities in the trucking industry. Anywhere you choose to download your podcast, you can find us, and you can also get our podcast and the latest news on the Insight at successintrucking.com. That's successintrucking.com. On today's edition of the Insight 2024 webinar series from Expediter Services, we're going to be exploring how comprehensive support and the services that trucking business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs receive as part of the ES community and an operational partnership with exclusive motor carriers and vendors ensures that you will never stand alone. A brief intro of me. I'm Leah Shaver. I own and operate the National Transportation Institute. We serve information and support to folks that employ or contract with professional drivers and work with companies that do. I serve on the board of directors of the Next Generation Trucking Association, and I'm celebrating 5 years as a talk radio host on SiriusXM's Road Dog Trucking Radio. In addition to filling in for full-time hosts, you can catch me the first Thursday of every month, 11 to 2 Eastern, for Payday with Leah Shaver on Road Dog Live, where we bring more important discussions just like today, but live for your midday drive. My goal today is to take an in-depth look at what we learned in 2024 and where that's going to bring us in 2025. We're having an Insight ES 2025 planning discussion today, and joining me for the conversation is Jeff Tacker. I jokingly call him the chief of almost everything, but that's because over the years I've known him. Like many of us, he has grown in his role and responsibilities at ES. Jeff Tacker, welcome to the Insight, the last Insight of 2024.
Thank you, Leah. And I am grateful and thankful, specifically this time of year, to be able to join everyone on this Insight webinar. And I am thankful, Leah, on a personal note, for you and Mark and your family and all that your company has done, not just for our company, but for the drivers in the industry and for the industry itself. So thank you, and I appreciate what you do.
Thank you very much. It's very kind, and it is a great honor to be able to work with your team to support your business needs and business intelligence needs, really, but also to be here and to be a voice and a face, really. You offer me the opportunity to be more than just a voice behind the mic, but also the face here in these discussions. And I think today's discussion is important, and it's also going to be slightly different than what we've done so far this year. I would say that primarily it's because it's just you and me, but we've done that before. The other thing is that I don't really like to look backwards, Jeff. One of the sayings that Mark taught me early in transportation is all we can do is move forward. And I think now I probably use that a whole lot more in my business discussions than he does. But ultimately, I do think it's important to learn from recent history. I think history and trends are crucial. We publish them, frankly, at NTI. But they really also they help us to have some insight into, see what I did there, into what is coming in the future. Some of that is true, and some of this conversation will also just be our thoughts, conjecture, our hopes maybe, and all of what we're expecting in 2025. So at a high level, I'm going to tell you quick, the things I'm going to ask you about today are, of course, going to be any big plans for 2025. I think we're going to break that down in terms of how to handle the industry in this state. We're going to talk about buying trucks. And when I say buying trucks, I'm saying owning trucks, having trucks, trucks you're buying. Let's talk about equipment sales. Let's talk about truck finance. I'm hearing noise about the EPA. I'm not an expert in that agency, but I do hear noise about the EPA related to truck sales. So let's talk about that. I do feel strongly though about relationships and relationships that ES has, mainly because I'm one of them, right? So let's talk about some other key component relationships, and those are the relationships that you have with dealers, since we're talking about buying trucks, and also the relationships that you have with exclusive motor carriers. And then let's just wrap it up with maybe some of our hopes for our listeners for 2025 and for wrapping up this year in the holiday season. So that was a lot. I hope we get through all of it, but how's that sound to you, Jeff?
That sounds great, Leah, and I think we're going to enjoy ourselves, and we'll get to what we get to, and then
That's
it
right.
might give us a chance to come back and look forward and have another one in early 25 if we don't cover it all.
That's absolutely true. All right, so let's start with handling the industry in this state. And when I say that, 23 brought some challenges, and 2024, I haven't come up with a name for it. You'll probably do it now that I introduced this idea. But I think I would call 2024 the year that we all said, and when is it going to end? Not the year, but this particular state of the freight industry that we've been in. At a high level, let's just say there's a lot of excess capacity in the market. There's not as much demand for capacity, and there's not as much demand in the marketplace for freight. And so that leads to a little less when it comes to productivity, maybe fewer miles driven, fewer loads delivered, etc. But one thing I do know about ES is that whether we are in a whopper of a year like we had in 21, 22, or we are in a bit of a down cycle, we've been in 23, 24, ES is the partner where, as we say, you never stand alone. So one thing that we always bring up on an insight in terms of small business ownership is focusing on what you can control. So when it comes to handling the industry in this state, Jeff, and small business owners, whether they are currently owners or aspiring owners, what impact, what input, what feedback or advice would you offer them in terms of how to handle the industry in this state and what we should be focusing on as we wrap up the year and look to 2025?
Sure, and I did think of something as you were saying all of that. So maybe what about 2024? Let's close the door. 2025, it's time to thrive. How about that, Leah?
We are writing that down and adding it to our campaigns as we speak, Jeff. We will be seeing that in all ES postings coming up soon. You heard it right here exclusively on the final insight of 2024.
Yeah. So, and I do agree, Leah. We've got to look forward. We got to be forward thinking, and we have to make sure that we're planning, because the idea is that we're going to continue, and we are going to continue, and we're going to continue to help people, because you know what we do as a company. We're a service company, and we create capacity, and then we service that capacity, and we do it in many, many different ways, Leah. So another thing that you had said, you're talking about focus. You don't like to focus on the past, except for trends and educational and information that you get, but you want to focus on the future. So keying off that word focus, just to lay the groundwork, looking into being able to thrive in 2025, let's go back to something as simple as, we'll focus on the fundamentals to start off this conversation. So if someone was to ask anybody, how are you going to handle 2025 and the state of the industry and what we're dealing with, I would say, to pull from a sports analogy, we're going to continue to block and tackle. We're going to continue to field the ball. We are going to focus on the fundamentals. We're not going to take shortcuts, Leah. There's no shortcuts to success. Sometimes people think that there is, but there's really none, specifically in trucking. So the people that try to take shortcuts end up getting themselves in a bad situation. We're going to build on a solid foundation. So while we don't look back, we are proud of what we've been able to accomplish, not our company, but the community of the company, the community that all the people inside the company, which consists of independent contractors, owner operators, fleet owners, motor carriers, and all of our vendors. It's a very, very good community, and we're proud of that community, thankful for that community, and we will continue to build that community and depend on that community. All of us will, going into 2025. So when you start focusing on the fundamentals, it's just some overview thoughts. You got to do the little things. Pennies make dollars, and you and I have talked about this so many times before. So we love to dream, and we're going to get into some dreams here and some hopes here in this conversation, and some evaluations possibly, and some forward and upward outlooks. But you've got to look at the small things, little things. Pennies make dollars. And the saying is that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. But to get to the whole, you've got to have the parts. And so you've got to start looking at the individual sections that make up the whole. And I know that's what you've laid out so eloquently in the introduction about all the things that we're going to touch today. And so one thing I would say, just an overarching statement, Leah, is how to handle the industry is a person's got, besides focusing on the fundamentals and pennies make dollars, taking care of the small things, you've got to remain disciplined to who you are. You got to know who you are and remain disciplined to what your plans are in your business, to make sure that you're willing to do those things. Because I can assure you, you and I both know there's going to be some good days, but there's going to be some tough days. We've all experienced the tough days looking back in 24, but we just closed the door, or we're closing the door on 24 and moving forward into 25. But you've got to remain disciplined to the things that you know that need to be done. A house cannot be built on sand. It's got to be built on a solid ground. It's got to be built upon a rock, a foundation of something. And when you say a house, I'm talking about a business. So when you're looking going into 2025, what are you going to do? What are you going to put your business into? What are you going to base it upon? You can base it upon things that come and go, or you can base it upon things that will help you with the small things, and let the pennies grow up to be dollars.
That's right. Well, I do want to ask you, and when you say discipline in terms of your plans, to at one of the things I can count on is that at ES we've got support and services, back office support, we have vendor support, so that professional drivers and small business owners, whether they own one truck or a few or many, they've got an opportunity to focus on safe and on-time delivery, and not so much all of the noise of everything in between. Are there other areas that you are referring to in terms of discipline, besides safe and on-time delivery? Is it related to customer interactions? How about I not guess? How about you just share with us?
Sure. Well, first thing, Leah, and and I know that to make money in business, you've got to be in business, right? So if you're going to be in business, you've got to have a certain underpinning. You've got to have certain things that you really focus on and watch after. That's why we're talking about how to be positioned and primed and ready to go in 25. And I'll call a backloaded 25 because most of the people, and I'm sure you can elaborate on that now or later if you choose, but a lot of the people saying second and third quarter of 25. Well, it's a long way off, but it's not. It'll be here before we know it. But when you're talking about things to be disciplined in, when I said earlier, you've got that pennies make dollars, and you've got to, if you want to have dollars, you got to watch the pennies. And in trucking, I believe that goes without saying. And anybody that's ever operated the truck, whether you're an independent contractor, owner operator, fleet owner, motor carrier, vendor, everybody knows that you've really got to pay attention to the extreme details, the pennies of what's happening. So I'm talking about being disciplined. Don't be weary from the tough year that you came out of in 24, and don't lose your energy, and don't give up, and just don't turn loose of things and sit down and take a breath and then get overtaken, or get yourself in a position that you're not positioned and primed, ready to move forward when the wave, you want to be able to catch the wave. And so some people say, well, man, it's been so hard. You want to talk about how we're going to do something in 25 and I'm still wore out from 24. Now, I'm not talking about overextending yourself and running too hard and wearing yourself down to the bone and changing the way things are handled. But I am telling you that you've got to be fit enough that you can get your breath, that you can get your legs under you, that you can get your mind focused back on things while you're still moving. And that's what we want to really talk to people about today, is those are the things that you should be looking at. And just simplistically, the big input cost, you got fuel, shop, tires, truck insurance, the truck obviously itself, the interest rate on the truck, the repair and maintenance that deals with the truck, the labor that's inside the truck, whether that be you as your own owner operator or whether you have an owner operator contract team driving a truck, or if you're renting a truck or lease with an option to purchase a truck, or where you're financing a truck. There's all of these things that you have to take care of. And we can unpack this, and it could take us a long time to unpack every segment of that, because you've got to look at the truck, you got to look at the labor of the truck, and you like look at all the input costs and input factors specifically on that truck. But I would say that don't grow weary, stay focused, stay on the fundamentals. You should be purchasing your fuel at the cheapest, best location, the lowest cost that you can get. You got to drive excess cost out of that. You got to be efficient in what you're doing, in service, out of service. Your truck repairs the same way, Leah. They got to make sure that you're getting, if you can get a discount on repair and maintenance items for the labor rates or parts rates, you ought to be doing that. Your insurance, you ought to be at a place and looking to the place where you can get lower insurance costs when I'm talking about physical damage, which is comp and collision, or non-trucking liability, or laden, unladen, depend on the motor carrier that you're with and how they establish those definitions. But then occupational accident insurance, every input that comes to the truck or the labor of the truck, remained focused and disciplined on those topics.
Okay, so I'm with you. And I see that when we talk about pennies making dollars, there are, in all of the ways, opportunities in terms of being a part of the community at ES to help save those pennies in order to make dollars, correct? All of the different categories or areas of your business ownership and operation that you just mentioned, ES does have support and services with vendor relationships or their own that they can offer assistance on those, correct?
That is correct, Leah. We have advantages that people do not receive out into the marketplace normally, and I do think our advantages give you the utmost advantage to be with us. And I'm not trying to play on words. I just want people to understand that all food's not the same. All cost inputs not the same, and all discounts aren't the same, and all support and service isn't the same. And we want to get across to the people in our community and ones that may be considering entering the industry and entering our community that our mechanisms are different. It is not the same as what you would get, but it is fuel. We've got the broadest and deepest fuel discounts in the industry, to my knowledge. The most locations with the best true cost, the truest low cost. We've got lots of technology behind those things, Leah, that allows them to do. We got a mobile app that you can get routing and you can pick out the way where you want to stop and plan. Once again, plan. That's what we're talking about, planning and looking into 25. You can plan your stops and plan your trips. We also have the same, we got national account discounts with the national shop providers, and we got tire discounts. And, in shops, it's not just one side. You got a labor rate conversation on that. Then you also have a parts cost conversation in that. We have truck discounts that we pass along and let people get access to. And I know we'll touch on that here in a moment after we get off the foundation of what we do.
So let's talk about owning a truck. Whether you own a truck now and you want to add, if you are thinking about becoming a business owner, if you want to try before you buy, any of these options are options with ES. But to have that truck in the first place, we have to talk about equipment sales and financing the truck and what those options look like. There's a lot of noise in the market right now about equipment sales, about truck buys, probably partially because of the economy and the interest rates and challenges that we've experienced in the trucking industry as we look backwards. But as we look ahead, there's also some other factors that have augmented decisions that folks make in terms of equipment buying. So let's talk about equipment sales and financing a truck with ES.
Yeah, so it's been some difficulty with the supply chain in recent years, and everybody understands that. Most dealers have been on allocation coming up into 24. And then with the extreme headwinds and the long valley and freight recession of 24 that continued, it freed up some inventory, but those things are shifting and the dynamics are changing on that. And our dealers are starting to tell us they will be back into allocation. At least the majority of our dealership base is going to be back in allocation in 25. And the main reason, and some of this is speculation, some of it's not, but the main reason they're going to be back into allocation is obviously some people have been a little leery on, well, when's it going to turn around? And so they're careful on inventory levels and they're careful on input cost and carrying costs. But the big thing, Leah, is that if the economy turns around and then there's a bump in people wanting to purchase equipment, they're going to be out of equipment quickly, already looking at a short allocation. And when they're looking at that allocation, it's because the pre-buy is going on and the EPA regulations, because there's going to be a change, I think, with the phase 3 green gas in 27. And so there's a lot of people starting to pre-buy, and a lot of companies are planning to do that. Regardless of what the economy does, they're starting to do that to be in a position to not have to buy an odd or new technology engine if they can get their hands on it. But you are correct, Leah. The other thing, if the economy keeps picking up and freight just bumps it all, we're going to have a shortage. Now, right now it's not, but it could turn that way, and we are expecting and projecting that to turn and turn probably mid-year. Some people are calling it backloaded 25, but I'm looking more like mid-year 25 to see what's going to happen. And then we know that there's we know all the things that's been happening, inflation and interest costs have been out of whack, and you can't get the products that you want, and then the freight's been depressed, and so the spot rate market's been off, and contracted rates has had downward trends on it, and the consumer indexes have been a little messed up, if that's a, just a layman's term to use. But all of that comes in to, what are you going to do about the trucks? So if you're going to be, we said earlier, you got to be in business. You got to be in business to make money in business. And if you're in trucking, it's called trucking for a reason, because you got to have a truck, right? So you got to have the truck, and you got to have the people in the truck. So the people in the truck, and you can probably elaborate on this for a long time, but what's happening with the available drivers and the old conversation or debate, a driver shortage or not a driver shortage, and I'm not trying to get into that conversation unless you decide to go down that route. But I do know that you got the drug clearinghouse conversation that's taking place, and regardless of whether they say they've got enough drivers, owner operators or not, what I would say is that one little caveat I'd like to put in there, Leah, and to throw the ball back to you in just a moment, is this. Is there enough people to get in there and run, and can they can survive and make an earning, and their business can turn a profit in the freight environment with the cost of the trucks, with the cost of the money that needs to be? So whether you've got lots of people and lots of drivers, I'm not debating the number of CDL holders out there. I'm debating the number of CDL holders that are willing to either get in the game, come off the sidelines, stay in the game, or stay in the game for what their earning potential is, and will they take the risk to do that? And there is really the crux of that whole conversation. And then you put on top of that there are government regulations that's changing with the clearinghouse, and that's came out, government regulations. And I'm telling you, on a little side note, I'm not pro government regulations, right? And so you've got a whole bunch of government regulations that I'll stop. Ronald Reagan said the worst thing to hear is, right, we're from the government, we're here to help. I mean, I believe that trucking feels that way a lot. We can't stand a bunch of that kind of help, Leah. That really gets us jammed up. But
we are the most overregulated industry that there is, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I'm not against certain things, and I don't want anybody to misconstrue that. But what I'm talking about is that I believe that the people that want to work should be able to work, and the people that are working should be able to earn a good earnings for their family, to have a good life, to be successful in the career path, whether that's trucking or not trucking, and what they want to do. And our company wants to help people do that.
Let me ask you about that. Let's stay with that for a second. There are truck ownership, quote unquote, if you're listening and you don't see my face and my quotes, truck ownership is could be debatable, right, based on who we're talking to. But depending on the type of scenario that you choose, getting into a truck and being called an owner operator or an independent contractor can be a relatively low barrier to entry, which is part of why we have so much excess capacity in the market today. But to be in a truck as an owner and to make a good living, that's another story. So, I think that it's another area where we should point out, while you've opened that door, that this is an area where ES does shine. This is not a get in a truck, call yourself an owner, and live just below the survival rate while paying someone else's note, correct?
That is correct, Leah. Everything that we've done as a company, whether it be on our branded fleet or non-branded fleet, regardless of where you want to look at that, everything that we've done is to drive success rates up in the trucking industry for people inside of our community. And we try to do that by putting them in a position to take all the frustrations out of the cab, help them be in the cab and help them have a cab to be into, and then help them operate that by driving out the cost. So you want to increase operational efficiencies, and you want to decrease all your expense lines that you can do. And we just do that with the simplistic view. We fuel shop, tires, insurance, R&M. You want to do those things because pennies make dollars. We said that multiple times today, but you want to make the money, but what good is making a dollar if you're spending a dollar and a dime? That's not a good thing at all. So you want to make the dollar and spend 50 cents. So you got 50 cents left over. And so everything that our company has done, Leah, is to get people in a position, not just to make it, but to thrive. And I'm going to be a little weird here, thrive in 25 and beyond. So what we want to do is get you in a position to give you tools, services, benefits, and advantages that will help you do better for you and your family. And we do that is not like rocket science here, what we're doing. We're just wanting to get you in a position with a good operating company and make sure that you have all the support you need, that you don't feel like you're standing alone, that you're inside of a community that has their arms wrapped around you, and then we're giving you the things that you need to drive the cost out of your business. And we do that with fuel, shop, tires, insurance, so on and so forth. Plus, give you a support mechanism with people inside the office. So you have back office support. We have outside financial support for people. We have equipment finance. We have equipment sales. We have a medical grouping for independent contractors, so they get telemedicine included. They get a discount on their drugs, the prescription card. They have identity theft protection. Lots of things, all these things that's been done, Leah, to help people not just barely get by. We not want people to get by. We want them to do well and good for them and their families.
Excellent. So thank you for taking that one from me. I think it behooves us to make sure that that those points come across just as valuably as it does to say that we've got relationships with dealerships in terms of equipment sales and buying trucks. Did we cover all of the important aspects on financing equipment and anything else that's key for 25? Did we cover the just buying trucks right now and all of those details that were important?
We didn't cover everything there was down in the minute detail about that because we're not going to be able to. But what I will tell you is that we do have some equipment, new equipment, and late model, low miles used equipment that we have in our control, or will be in our control, or we have the allocation for that coming, and we'll talk about that in a minute through our relationships with our dealers, truck dealers that we have. But we do have those things coming, so we're helping people. And we can help people. And if you're wanting to get in, what we used to say, now is the time and this is the place. And I believe that's always the case. Leah said that earlier when we started the conversation, that whether it's good or bad, or whether it's in between, ES can help. So, and now is the time. I do believe, and I say that we're not desperate to sell equipment. We're not desperate to finance equipment, but we are desperate to help people and let them hear our voice and come to find out that there are options out there, and there's good options out there. And I believe wholeheartedly that we are, I'm going to say, the best option out there, but one of the best. There's other good companies. So we don't talk about other companies, what they do. We're here to talk about the things that we do with people. And I do know this. I don't know what everybody else is doing to help you. I just know what our company is doing to help you. And what we're doing to help you is driving out costs, getting you in a place to have access to equipment, getting you in a place to operate that equipment and stay healthy in the truck, physically, financially, mentally, operationally, whatever way you want to look at that. We're also looking and helping you get access to financing, because we're opening up. We have our own Expediter equipment finance, so we get to open up our own credit box and our own decision making into that. And we look at attitude, aptitude, work ethic, and work history. We have every way to get into a truck that you want to get into a truck. We have a rental program. If you want to be a rental owner operator, you just come and rent it, and then you're running your business. Like Leah said, it's a very low barrier to entry, but it's all the benefits that stack in behind there. We have a lease with an option to purchase, and I will call out right there that it's a non-traditional lease purchase. It's a hybrid, so to speak, and hybrid's really not a good word because we're not running on electricity. We still run on diesel. But I will tell you that we do have a non-traditional lease with an option to purchase. And the reason I'm calling it non-traditional, call and check us out. Lay it against anybody's program that you want to lay it against. But we tell people what the front end cost is. We tell people what the cost of funds are. We give them an example amortization table, which is unheard of on a lease with an option to purchase. We don't have a big back end balloon. We let you know when you're going to come off, and what your options to come off and ways to do that, because it's not a walk away lease. It's a successful long-term program, but we've got that laid out, and we will be very transparent and clear with you and share that with you on the front end. We share the cost of what those funds are. We tell you how we're calculating all of those things. We give you the trucks, the specs. We don't hide anything, Leah. We're telling them everything that we do. We also have true bank financing. So that's another thing that we do, is we can give them access to equipment any way they want it, so to speak. And then we can finance that equipment any way they want it, so to speak. And when I say any way they want it, there are qualifications and requirements. We have to adhere and follow those, but it is our credit box. And I mentioned that earlier: attitude, aptitude, work ethic, and work history.
I noticed you didn't mention credit score in that list, Jeff.
I'm glad you brought that up. When we get into relationships, Leah, it's the same type of thing. We want to know the truck dealers we're dealing with, but we also want to know the independent contractors we're dealing with, and we want them to know us. And so we have to pull their story, so to speak, and that's just one chapter in their story. But we make a decision on the person. Do they know what they're doing? Will they do what they say? Will they get in there and work? Because I will tell you this, and since you mentioned credit score, Leah, there's bad things happen to good people. And there's all of us are one or two phone calls away, or one or two odd decisions away, or sometimes just things taking place it's not even in our control. And we all need somebody, right? Nobody can be an island unto themselves. And that's why the ES community, in my opinion, is so important. People should not try to stand on their own by themselves. Now, you got to walk on your own, but we'll walk with you. We're not going to carry you, but I promise you we'll walk alongside of you. But you need a group to be with.
Jeff, you mentioned relationships a few different times, and I do want to get into the relationship conversation because it's another key component of being a part of the ES community. We're going to talk later after we talk about our dealers and our motor carriers. I am going to ask you about relationships with all of the folks in the ES community. But let's start first with our dealers and wrap up in terms of the equipment finance and sales. In order to be in business, as you said, in trucking, we've got to have a truck. And we are making access to trucks affordable, available, and with a lot of support. And a key component of that is nurturing relationships with particular dealerships. Do you want to just talk about our dealers, about our choices in terms of what equipment you're financing and why, and really at a high level in terms of why those relationships are so important, and the understanding of then what decisions are made?
Relationships are important because I think our community is built upon relationships, i.e., our relationship with your company and our relationship with other companies, and specifically the dealers that you're talking about. So we have a very long-standing good relationship with both of our main dealer base. And the original one that came out, Stoops Freightliner, which is Truck Country, which is owned by the McCoy Group, a great family. We're personal friends with Brian McCoy and all of his team that's over there. And we've got Dave Bibler in financing, and Nate Meyer in truck sales. And so we've got a very good relationship with Stoops Freightliner. So obviously you're talking about what equipment we have. There's Freightliner equipment, and we run the Cascadias. Our tractors, we have the DD15 engines, the DT12 transmissions, we got auxiliary power units, all those things. They're equipped with an owner operator spec. They've got great OEM warranties on them, and they're good product. But just having the product, you've got to have a support mechanism for that. And so they've got their shops and their dealership base, and then we've got other networks that's in there. We also have a relationship with Dobbs Peterbilt, and so we run the Peterbilt 579. We got Mike Clark that runs the Dobbs Corporation, and they're a great family in the Mid-South area. Dobbs is. And Mike is been a good asset to us. You got Will Carlisle, and then you got Andrew Ryan, and then Josh Sykes that's coming in with the Dobbs Peterbilt group that we do business with. And they have expanded, and they've got a network, and they've got a network that's expanding across the country. And we've got sister companies that we can get equipment into and out of if need be to supply the needs for the people. Well, everybody, when they have trucks, most people, when they get ready to buy equipment, Leah, they start looking and they say, okay, I'll go get a truck and I'll get it here or there. And they looking at price. And then if they don't have price, they're looking at availability. And then if they got price and availability, they start looking at how am I going to pay for it. And while most people would like to pay cash, most people can, and it's probably not even wise because you'd want to multiply your cash leverage there to expand your business. But one of the things that we've been able to do is people will sell you what they have, but if they don't have it, they're not saving it for you. It's normally most dealership bases is on a first come, first serve situation. And they also say, and I'm not bad mouthing any dealerships outside of our network or talking about truck dealers at all. They've got to do what they've got to do. That's their business model. But most of them try to maximize and get the most profit one deal at a time. So what we've done, Leah, is aggregate, co-op, brought everybody together in our community so we can negotiate with an extremely large buying base and buying power, and we can it's risky now at times, not too risky, but we have to project. We've got to have a pro forma. We've got to go out and secure, and we've got to put our name and our money up to secure trucks out into the future for people inside of our community. But what that does is that makes sure that we've got the equipment. Well, you and I both know that if you didn't have a good relationship with your dealer base and somebody just came in and walked into the door, some dealers might what they call sell it out from under you. They might go ahead and sell it because somebody's willing to give them 5, 10, 15, 20,000 more. And most of the time it's probably 10, 15, $20,000 price difference what we saw versus what somebody in our network in our community could buy through the relationship that we've established with our dealers. Stoops, McCoy Group, Truck Country, and Dobbs Peterbilt. And so it's extremely important, Leah, that a person has a network or a community, and that's built upon, both of those are built upon relationships, right? If you're networking, you're building relationships. If you've got a community that's built on relationships, we do relationship lending. We are a relationship we're not transactional, we're relationship based. And so we do those and have done it that way. So you've got to have that. So that is one thing that we've done and why we feel it's very important to do that. Now, I can tell you right now that our dealer base has other relationships with other customers, so they can't put us on the top of the list, even though Jason and I ask them to put us on the top of the list all the time. They've got to please other people, but I can tell you we might not we always are in the consideration of their conversations based on what they tell us. So it's better than being out there by yourself with no ability and you just have to live with whatever gets thrown your way.
All right. It seems like the relationships, and I loved what you said, relationship lending, because it brings us back to all of the points you made before that. So I won't rehash them or ask you to, but relationships are so very important when it comes to buying. And I imagine, look, this is a huge investment, just like folks, invest when they come into a relationship with ES. It's the same as, the relationship, therefore, that you've got on their behalf with those dealers. Is there I'm just curious in terms of 2025, besides them suggesting that there might be allocations again, is there anything else that we need to know for 2025 related to equipment and those dealers?
Well, what they need to realize is I do think they are going to be on allocation because many people are going to be pre-buying in the back half of 25, mid to back half of 25, and probably most of 26. And if you don't, and you don't make preparation, you're going to either have to carry your old inventory into the future or buy a first year new generation engine that comes out of this phase 3 greenhouse EPA regulations, which besides being somewhat unproven. Now, some of the dealers might fuss at me for saying that because they say, well, it's proven, but I'm telling you, I say it's proven when I get to eat the pudding, and we haven't eaten that pudding yet. So I don't know if the proof's not in the pudding to us. They can talk about spreadsheets and lab testing and what's happened in a different country, but I'm talking about in the United States. But what I will tell you is that there's going to be people that end up on the short stick because they didn't make plans, and they're going to be running some bad equipment longer than they want to. They won't upgrade. They won't be able to grow. So I would say that in 25, relationships matter, our community matters, and you should be looking at what you're going to do to plan to cover this new technology. Not just because it's new technology, but also because of the cost, Leah. So they are saying all the main OEMs, Freightliner, PACCAR, which is Peterbilt and Kenworth, Volvo, that's the main ones that are out there, are saying there is going to be a price increase, and that price increase is going to range anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 is the educated estimate or educated speculation. And I think one OEM, and I don't want to speak for them, has already announced what their price increase is going to be. And some of them are holding their cards close to their vest because they're trying to, they're wanting to sell what they have now, and they're wanting to get everybody to pre-buy and pre-plan, and then they're wanting to try to move into what they have. So they have to be careful, and I'm not speaking on their behalf, but they have to be careful. If they're too aggressive now, they get them scared of the new equipment. If they pump up the new equipment too much, they won't buy now. So that's not my sack to carry in this conversation. But what I will tell you is that what we do is that we're talking about 2025. And we're talking about getting equipment now, because now is the time and this is the place, and you need to be primed and in position to move and thrive in 25. And you need to be ready when the uptick comes, because I do think capacity is going to get hit with the regions we talked about earlier. I think allocation is going to be in play, and people they're going to run out of equipment at least. And here's what I want to get out there. Big companies might have them. There's some large motor carriers that can go spend $100 million and do what they want to do. But there's a lot of us smaller people, even though we have a very large buying group, when I'm talking about individual people, one-off buying one truck at a time, or 4 or 5 trucks or 10 trucks at a time, even though we've ordered hundreds, we'll have hundreds in allocation to set aside. But there's a lot of people won't have access to that outside of a buying group or a community or a network system, like a vendor network system like we have set up.
Very good. I feel ready to buy a truck. Where do I sign?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm not ready. But I am ready to talk about more relationships, and those are the ones that you have with motor carriers. There are a handful of motor carriers in the ES community that you partner with, and I think it's important to share that ES is not a motor carrier. You are working together with motor carriers, but on behalf of the owners in your community. Do you want to set the stage for that briefly, and then let's talk about our partner motor carriers and how we operate on behalf of the owners in the community with them.
Sure. Well, you said it, so I'll just reiterate it. ES, Success in Trucking, Expediter Services, we are not a motor carrier. We don't sell freight, broker freight, or dispatch freight. We're a service provider. We create capacity, and then we service that capacity, and we do it, as I previously mentioned earlier, with all these tools, services, benefits, and advantages that we bring to the marketplace. And inside of that, there's truck sales and equipment financing. And we have specific partner motor carriers that we're involved with that participate with our programs. And currently, the primary motor carriers in that environment or in our program alphabetically. So it's FedEx Custom Critical, Forward Air, and Panther Premium Logistics, a service of ArcBest. I will tell you that we have a couple more that we're working on, and we expect to unveil those sometime in first quarter 2025. But we have been with uh, FedEx, Forward Air, and Panther for years. We know the people over there. They are a good asset light, non-asset based motor carrier when it comes to the power equipment. They run independent contractors, and that's where we're at. We do not deal with company-owned fleets, so to speak. And everything that we do has been set up for the people in business, for business, owning the business, buying the business. They are the business. And that's what these motor carriers do. And so they are owner operator based motor carriers that I mentioned earlier, Leah. And in my opinion, that's the best route to go. You get the best of all worlds inside of this asset light or non-asset based motor carrier. You get the flexibility, the freedom, the I don't know if pride's the right word, but the opportunity to have your own business, make your own decisions, be your own person, grow as big as you want to be. We've had people to start driving in a rental truck or a lease truck and now own over 100 trucks, Leah. That's a large fleet from individuals that just start out from basically nothing. And so we're not taking their thunder. We're proud for what they've been able to accomplish inside of our community and the thriving environment that we have. And so the motor carriers that we have support that as well. And they have good customer bases, and they've got a good platform, and they have a goal and intentions and agenda aligned with ours to make sure that these business owners succeed. Now, without trying to sound odd, we all know it's been a tough 2024, but as you and I said earlier, we're closing that door, right, on 2024.
I was going to say it, but you did.
Yeah, well, you've given me the chance to do it, and I know you're letting me do a whole lot of talking, and people are going to get tired of my country twang. But what we're doing is we're just really wanting to make sure let people know what we're trying to do and how we're trying to help them, Leah. And it is based upon community and relationship, and it gets down into the trucks, into the financing, into the dealership base, into people with you in our vendor network situation. It also carries over to our motor carrier relationships, and we've had long established relationships with these motor carriers, or at least people, the ones that we're looking at too. We've had relationships with those people that's coming in those motor carriers. So
I think one important factor that I've heard Jason reference often as well is that, sometimes because you're working on behalf of the owners in the community and not the motor carrier, it can even mean sometimes that you are having difficult conversations, right? You are having, you're taking opportunities to have conversations on behalf of an owner in the fleet that might need some extra support, for example, or if something isn't working well, or whatever the case may be. But that the relationships, whether they be with the dealers, whether they be with the folks at the motor carrier, whether they be with the folks in the community, that each of these are important, spokes of the wheel, right? That's turning.
they are, Leah. And I tell you, I appreciate you bringing that up because it's not always a bed of roses, and things aren't always, let's just smile at each other and have niceties while we are respectful. We are respectful to everybody in the community, and we expect people to be respectful to our community and us and everybody involved there as well. But we do have to have a very open, hard, direct conversations at times because everybody's thoughts good until they hear the other person's side of the story. And humans have a tendency, all of us included, you and I included, have a tendency, we know what we know, we don't know what we don't know, and we see things the way we see it. Now, hopefully, with education and with good input and good support systems and good visibility and good data, that a person can be mature and logical of how they handle those things. But at times, we all fall victim to pain and suffering, and financial pain and suffering is what I'm talking about, which makes us have a different outlook to things. But what we do, Leah, is the relationships that we've been able to establish in the community with our truck dealers, with our vendors, other vendors, with our motor carriers, and with the people in the truck. It's a real conversation. So it's not a made up conversation, it's a real conversation. And the relationships are strong enough to stand the yank and the tug and the pull. Because if you have a relationship that's not built that way, it's just a matter of time till they come apart. We have had some very great times and very good conversations with everybody in our community, all the ones I've mentioned earlier. We've also had some very trying, tough days with all of us. So we're not just trying to, as you say, blow sunshine on people, even though we want to be a ray of sunshine and even though we want people to feel those things. But sometimes there's cloudy days. And if you don't understand that the cloud's coming, you've got a problem. But if you stay and you want to live under that cloud, you've got a problem too, because I can tell you that weeping may endure for the night, but joy will come in the morning. And there's always going to be, the sun's going to be shining and coming back up in this time frame.
I'm smiling. I try to leave my personal stories out of this, but I will tell you, I live in South Florida. Most people know that I'm very open about chasing the sun year round, and so I do that here in South Florida. And we have some hurricane activity down here. And recently, someone said, "I just don't know why. Why do you people do it? Why do you stay when we've had to go through multiple hurricanes this year? And, some people really suffering through that." And I just replied, "The sun will come out tomorrow."
That's correct.
And it does, it's,
and that's great.
the sun will come out tomorrow.
And I agree with you, Leah. And so, but that's part of it. So you've got to fight through those things, and we do want to have those relationships. And we do take the side and support the people in the community. Now, what we want to be is right ought to be right, fair ought to be fair. It was good for the goose ought to be good for the gander, right? All of those things ought to be considered in there. So I would say I know we're trying to wrap things up here, but one of the things, Leah, if it's right, good, and true, it ought to be what it is. And I think one key aspect that our community brings to the table is we're a sounding board. We let people be real. We can get in there and talk about it. And of course, you can have conversations and even have disagreements, and they can even be intense or contentious at times. But at the end of the day, we still put our arms around each other because we embrace each other inside of this community, and we move back and we move forward, and we're looking forward, like not looking back. You got to get over it and get on with things. But you got to be able to have those tough conversations, because if not, and I'm not getting political here, but if not, you're just going to be like a politician telling everybody what they want to hear. And then sometimes when everybody's getting one room, then all of a sudden they realize that you, the person's causing the problems, because you can't please everybody all the time on every topic. And it's a give and a take situation. Now that's where it goes back, and I'm tying this together. That's where it goes back to the relationship. The relationship ought to be strong enough and tight enough that you can understand to live and let live, that it can be, if I'm trying to do what's best for the people in the community, and individuals in the community, which include the contractors, owners, fleet owners, the vendors, the motor carriers, and they're all trying to do what's best for the people in the community. We will get to a place where everybody can thrive in 25. And that's one of the things I do think, to wrap it up, what you said so wonderfully is that the community does help people, and we relate to people, and we're real, and we do give them, we do have a mechanism and a program to give them, really, to give them hope for things. We can help people get to what they're accomplishing. Now, we can't be all things to all people, and we can't fix everything, and we can't make everything go away. But what we can do is be with you while we're dealing with everything. And that is, one of the best parts about our company and our community and the people that's involved with it.
Well, Jeff, I want to thank you for an amazing conversation, of course, but also an opportunity to yet again have support your business needs this year in 2024. And I don't know about you, but I'm ready to shut the door on 2024 and make room to thrive in 2025.
Me too, Leah. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, and to you for joining us here. As always, when we end this this series, I always thank you for joining us, but I especially want to thank you today for having joined us on the final installment of the Insight 2024 series with ES Success in Trucking. But especially today, as we wrap up the year and as we head into the peak of the holiday season, I just want to extend a particularly humble and sincere expression of our gratitude to you. You bring so much to the industry, and all of you attending today touch the success of professional drivers, of safe delivery every day. Thank you for all you do day in and day out all year long. From my team at NTI, from the folks at ES Success in Trucking, from our family to yours, we wish you a safe, warm, peaceful holiday season and wrap up of 2024. We're going to shut the door on 24 and get ready to thrive in 25. If you are not currently in touch with us, there are a variety of ways here that you can be. We hope that you will join the community, get in touch, stay in touch, and head to successintrucking.com. And in the meantime, stay safe, well, and connected, as with ES, you never stand alone.